Thanks, Tyler, and thank you for tuning in to the Amherst Weekly Report.
Hello, welcome to this week's episode of the Amherst Weekly Report. I'm Jade Mosley.
And I'm Mariana Gonzalez.
UMass Amherst School of Nursing held the Bone Marrow Registry Drive, Swab a Cheek, Save a Life, last week from October 24th through October 28th. In partnership with the organization, The Gift of Life, UMass Amherst received over 3,000 registries from the UMass community. While the university has held bone marrow registry drives in previous years, this drive was the most successful in the amount of registrations not only at UMass, but also for the Gift of Life. UMass Amherst senior student nurse John Wilson led the drive after speaking with his previous roommate, who is a childhood leukemia survivor, and encouraged Wilson to run a drive on campus. Wilson said, "We managed to swab over 3,000 students into the registry, which is the largest marrow registry drive ever done for the Gift of Life. The previous record was about 1,100, so we smashed the record." With bone marrow donations, people affected by a variety of blood cancers can receive life-changing bone marrow and stem cell transplants. Having bone marrow registration drives on college campuses, like UMass, is important because the younger the donor is, the better the patient outcome is. The majority of patients with leukemia, a type of blood cancer, depend on anonymous bone marrow and stem cell donations, as only 25% of leukemia patients receive a match from someone they're related to. Wilson also stated there are major misconceptions about the process of a bone marrow donation, which makes people hesitate to register and donate. A lot of people think it is a procedure where they drill into your bone. It's not like that anymore. 90% of the donations are stem cells and are taken peripherally through an IV. It's not as scary as a lot of people think it is, Wilson said. With plans to have another bone marrow registry drive in the spring, Wilson also aims to find a successor in order to have the drive continue at UMass once he graduates.
There have been several updates on the incident that happened the 5th of July of this year, where BIPOC youth were told by Amherst police that they have no rights in the face of the law because of their age. 2 officers had arrived at the scene after a noise complaint from a nearby neighbor. The reaction of the community has been active through workshops to teach youth their rights in the face of the law through the Citizens for Juvenile Justice organization, as well as a walkout and the continuous discussion of the incident on several town council meetings. The Citizens for Juvenile Justice organization held a workshop at the University of Massachusetts Amherst early October to teach the youth of Amherst what their rights are in the face of the law. During the workshop, attendees were able to participate in questions for the organization that advocates for juvenile justice in the state of Massachusetts. There was also a walkout on October 29th that was coordinated by the defunct 413 Sunrise Amherst and the Progressive Coalition of Amherst. During the walkout, protesters referred to the students involved in the incident as the Amherst Nine and held up signs with drawn fists on them. The Town Council of Amherst has plans as well to address the incident. With 75 people attending the town hall meeting virtually that occurred on November 1st, many of them spoke out against the police department for their actions on July 5th. Attendees urged the department to take accountability for their actions, as well as to create a repair fund for the victims of the incident. Most of the concerns from attendees of the meeting stemmed from the difference in treatment had these group of students been all white. An internal police report has been released to the public. The report states that the officer on the scene had misspoken to the youth about their rights and was corrected by the other police officer in the scene. The report also states that there was no use of physical force in the scene and that the detained youth were safely released to their caretakers. It also indicates that there was no occurrence of over-policing, as 2 officers at the scene of a noise complaint is considered protocol. The Chief of Police, Scott Livingstone, has not formulated an apology yet on the incident. And now to Tyler for sports.
Thanks, Ariana. While UMass football did extend its losing streak to 4 games against the New Mexico Aggies, the team managed to do so in a somewhat respectable fashion compared to previous years, falling 23-13. The lone touchdown of the game was scored by running back Kayron Adams, who also rushed for 84 yards on 23 carries. Standing at 1-7, their next matchup will be against the 4-5 Yukon Huskies, who have proven themselves to be much improved since the rivalry's most recent installment last fall. And while UMass has improved as well, regardless of what their record would seem to indicate, they definitely enter this road game as the underdogs. A victory here would be huge for the Don Brown-led squad, but that remains to be seen. The Amherst College Mammoths have similarly only captured a single victory on the season, as they took a loss over the weekend as well, falling to Wesleyan University 13-7 in an overtime showdown. Defense was the name of the game here, as following a first quarter Wesleyan touchdown, the game remained scoreless until the fourth, where Mike Piazza slung it for 7 to receiver Jack Betts. In the end, Wesleyan running back Charlie McPhee found pay dirt on the first overtime possession, and the Mammoths were unable to respond. The team's next matchup will be against Bowdoin College at home this Saturday at 1. While UMass women's soccer unfortunately drew their season to a close following a 0-2 loss to Dayton, the men's team will hope to keep their season alive against number 1 St. Louis this Friday at 8 p.m. As one sport ends, another begins, with UMass basketball finally returning Monday, November 7th for both the men and women's teams. Both teams will be playing Central Connecticut State, starting with the Minutewomen at 5 p.m. and the Minutemen at 7:30, both at home. Finishing up with UMass hockey, the team stands strong at 5-1-1 following back-to-back games against Merrimack. Their first game was an overtime thriller at home, which they won 3-2 following a game-sealing goal by sophomore Taylor McCarr, his third score in 3 games. Their second game, however, while also entering overtime, ended in Merrimack's favor as they won 2-1. This marked the first loss of the season for the Minutemen, and a moment they will attempt to bounce back from as they have back-to-back games against Providence, the first of which being on the road at 7 p.m. on Friday, and the second of which taking place at the same time in the Mullen Center on Saturday. Back to you, Jade.
On October 15th, there was an incident instigated by a UMass student at a Hampshire College Woods party that resulted in a permanent ban on UMass students at future Hampshire Woods parties. Hampshire College's notorious parties in the campus's woods, or woods parties, are orchestrated by a group of upperclassmen called the Committee to ensure that the parties are safe for all attendees. Previously, the parties had an open-door policy to all 5 colleges and were intentional about welcoming all members of the Amherst community and beyond. But, in light of this recent incident, as well as other incidents with UMass students, this will no longer be the case. UMass students desiring to go to a Woods-affiliated party will have to be personally invited by a Hampshire student in order to receive admission. The incident took place on a typical Saturday night in the woods. According to the official Hampshire Woods Party Instagram account, the UMass student in question called multiple students both homophobic and racist slurs, attempted to steal decorations and equipment, assaulted a queer BIPOC Hampshire student, verbally assaulted queer students from the other 5 colleges, and was a general nuisance to partygoers. After the incident, the committee was also informed that the UMass student was associated with a fraternity and possibly armed. As a result, the committee conferred with the impacted students and held a formal meeting with all of their members. On October 19th, the committee released a statement via Instagram informing Hampshire students that UMass students will no longer be allowed in Woods-affiliated parties. In 4 slides, the committee explained the reasoning behind this decision, stating that due to various complaints made primarily by BIPOC students, UMass students have been banned from all Woods parties in the future. Many UMass students fired back at the committee making claims that this ban was unethical and unfair to UMass. Considering that the University of Massachusetts Amherst is the cheapest in-state option for many, several UMass students made claims that the ban is classist. The committee responded, "Many Hampshire students are on scholarship or taking out student loans, so the classism claims do not track. The intention behind this ban is to target the specific brand of UMass student that multiple BIPOC students have made various complaints about." They went on to encourage people who take issue with this ban to turn their frustrations to the culture at UMass that allows these incidents to occur unpunished. They stated there is a clear institutional issue at UMass that allows toxic party culture and etiquette to thrive there, and in the interest of keeping everyone safe, they can no longer be allowed. "We have opinions on frat culture and UMass's larger culture generally. There is a frat that protected a rapist which has not been disbanded. There were mass hate emails sent by a group of students to black students last semester which has not been dealt with. If something happens here, we know that UMass will not hold its students accountable because they don't even hold them accountable on their own campus." They concluded their official statement by saying, "We are not responsible for the violent, racist, aggressive, and sexually predatory actions of a large number of UMass men and women at our parties. Right now, what we are doing is to mitigate the damage and prevent the continuation of harm BIPOC and LGBTQ+ Hampshire students we can." Although due to the weather getting colder, there are no more Woods parties being held this semester, the committee is still taking great lengths to ensure this ban withstands until there is a cultural and systemic shift at UMass to ensure the safety of all students at Woods parties.
In early October, the Jones Library trustees again revised their Memorandum of Agreement in a move which was meant to protect Amherst townspeople from wasting tax money. However, revisions and updates are still coming in on a daily basis. Most recently, Amherst Indy reported that they had obtained a list of recommendations from the Massachusetts Library Association to the Jones Library on how to better utilize space. The recommendation notes that the library should focus especially on providing comfort updated technology to users. In order to effectively use the space in the library, serious organizational changes will need to be made. One recommendation is to centralize storage in order to use scattered storage spaces for seating. The association also recommends considering off-site storage. Additionally, the Massachusetts Library Association recommends that staff spaces be converted into user spaces. These areas are nice and well lit, but the document argues that they should be used for the library's patrons rather than the staff. The proposed floor plan includes a centralized children's area as well as a storytime space. Notably, this floor plan would convert the offices and information area to spaces for library users. Among the recommendations for the repurposing of the space are a cafe and a bookstore. This new report comes as controversy surrounding the library reconstruction grows. The project is expensive, and the Amherst Town Council has faced difficulty in coming to a conclusion about how to obtain the necessary funding. While it is uncertain to what extent the Jones Library will attempt to recreate the proposed floor plan, this document sheds some light on what the project's intent might be, which is especially important for the people of Amherst to know.
Thank you for tuning in to the Amherst Weekly Report. I'm Jade Mosley.
And I'm Mariana Gonzalez. See you next week.